Hey, how's it going, guys? Thank you for stopping by, checking out my YouTube channel, checking out my YouTube page. My name is Rick, also known as Rick's Two Cents. I have a special guest with me today. Becky, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Becky Kotzer with 605 Customized DTF Transfers.
So we're going over a topic today that's kind of touchy. It's should you buy a DTF printer or should you buy DTF prints? And I think this is a good topic people are kind of avoiding. And I think that is because sometimes people are motivated through sales, whether it be through equipment, supplies, or what have you, and making people make financial decisions that they may not be prepared to deal with the consequences, because there's pros and cons of everything. So the whole idea behind these videos is a collaboration. So I would say Rick's 2 cents, but not only to get my 2 cents, but get somebody else's 2 cents who's been doing this a long time, in the industry, and knows the pros and cons of business. And really to get somebody else's insight and bounce each other feedback. And not always necessarily agree, to always have maybe a difference of opinion, but collectively have different thoughts, because ultimately you're coming to us for an opinion and you're going to gather an opinion of your own. So, Becky, do you kind of want to introduce your background, what your company does and what you've been doing and where you're located at, and kind of just plug yourself a little bit here?
So I've been in the DTF business for a couple of years. I started out with retail. I have a retail custom t-shirt business that I run out of a shop that is attached to my house. I'm located in northeast South Dakota, so kind of in the middle of nowhere, but yet centrally located in the middle of the country. And a couple of years ago, I had a friend that sent me a link that says, "Have you seen this?" And I'm like, "I don't know, should I?" I dove right into DTF before I knew what DTF really was all about. And what I tell everybody is DTF is not for the faint of heart. If I knew now, or I knew what I would have probably maybe gone through at this point, I maybe would have never actually jumped in. So
oh no,
it was probably about this time 2 years ago that I had gotten that message, and I started looking, and I realized I had some capital, so I thought, yep, let's jump in and let's do this. So I jumped in and bought an L1800, and then for most people have heard that one through the DTF industry, or if you start searching, that's the first thing that everybody tells you to buy. Within the first 2 weeks of having my L1800, it was sitting on the shelf. It was very, very slow for me. You're time sensitive when you're wanting to do things and last minute, and we were walking into the Christmas rush. So it was kind of imperative that I get things done in a timely fashion. And so I started researching some more, and the next one that people were talking about was the P800. And I started searching and scouring Marketplace, and I found two. I ended up buying and converting myself. The P800s were much better, still very maintenance, labor intensive. It's not easy to get to their print heads. They're obviously not made for DTF inks. And so those print heads require quite a bit of maintenance, and especially if they've sat a day or two. I mean, I would spend a half hour plus just getting it cleaned in the morning, and then there again, the P800 was not faster than the L1800, but still not fast. And you would print some test stuff to get your inks flowing, because on the P800s there's no white circulation, which at that point I didn't know what white circulation was. We're still learning, and there it was, reaching out to whatever DTF group you could join and hope that maybe somebody that's already tried this or did something or could possibly help you in any way. And I found a lot of people that were very willing to help, and that was probably the most amazing thing for me. So, they really helped push me through. My husband was a lot of support. He was out here helping me convert printers, pull things off, put things back on, set up desks, try to rearrange things so we could make it work. I ran the P800 for several months, and then again, still just trying to learn and read and seeing which printers are next. Well, the P800s, as you know, are like 17 inches the max you can go on a P800, and I was looking for something a little bit wider to try to get the full 2-foot space to print. So there again, I was searching Marketplace, trying to figure out what the next one was, reading the DTF forums, and I found an Epson 7880 that was somewhat local to me, and I was able to get at a really good price, and we converted that. And we had a really good setup, and we ran with that for well over a year. And I actually ended up setting up with a conveyor dryer to cure at that point because I did not have a mini shaker. I wasn't looking to invest in the full shaker because at that point the 7880 was still not quite fast. It was wide format but not commercial. So you're still limited on your time. It was still taking time to get things to print, sending things to and from, all the different things that go into that. And from there, I started researching some commercial stuff. I had a friend that was running commercial. She was really kind of hoping I would kind of come with her, and the more research we did, my husband and I did some research, and we decided to run with the CobraFlex printer, which was showing a liquid adhesive. It took several months to get it, and then once we got it, it took a little bit to get it set up. We ran good for a while, and then we had some problems with the dryer. They had upgraded the dryer, so I have a new dryer. We still had some issues here and there, ran into some problems with the equipment. And then all of a sudden, I ended up with a bunch of shirts coming back at me. I had people that I had sold transfers to coming back saying, this just isn't working, things are not sticking. I had several orders of my own that did the same thing, and so we were trying to troubleshoot and all that stuff. Well, we have a print head that's clogged with the liquid adhesive. And it was at that point that I just decided this isn't working for me. And so I pivoted again and found a powder shaker dryer unit from a new company that's coming up, and we'll be having printers and dryers for sale. And he was able to get me one in a couple weeks, and we got that up and running, and we're running really, really well right now. It's the maintenance on the CobraFlex, which there's several new printers out there that have the ability to get underneath the print heads, and that's probably the biggest thing. Is any of your L1800s, your P800s, all of those are in the machine. They go and they sit in the capping station, and you can't get to them. You have to try to get paper towels underneath them, all that kind of stuff. The newer printers that are coming out are allowing you to move that whole print carriage over to the left and get underneath that, so you can clean around them, get all the gunk around them. It's just easy to clean. The capping station then is wide open so that you can clean around that. You can clean all the wipers. You can get to everything pretty easily. And that's the new company that I'm working with is called Simply Works. And that's the whole point of their machines is, first of all, it works. Second, it's simple to get to all the items that we need to get to fix, because at some point you're going to have to fix something. You're going to have to repair something. You're going to have to replace something. And instead of having to have a tech come out, especially for me when I live in the middle of nowhere and you don't have a big airport close that makes it cost effective to fly somebody here to fix something, you're looking for YouTube videos, you're looking for this, and that Simply Works will provide the videos for you to be able to do it yourself. We'll have the option to bring a tech out if you are not comfortable with it and you want a tech to come do all the maintenance and fix and repair what you need. But the biggest thing is that it's just going to be simple and it's going to be easy to work with. So, we've evolved a lot. I have, again, like I said before, had I known what I would have gone through, the heartaches of things not working, the money spent, the money wasted, just all of that, it would have been a hard thing for me. However, the flip side, it is so awesome to be able to print a full color image once, twice, however many times you need it. And if I only need 5, I print 5. Right. If I realize suddenly, oh shoot, I needed a 6th one, I can go print a 6th one. Right. That's the beauty of it compared to, say, a screen print where, if I'm sending out for screen prints, it's like, okay, I need to make sure I plan for a few extras because what happens, and with me having the DTF on site now, there's still a time and a place for screen print transfers, and we'll get into that here in a second, but it's, I order what I need, and then we can print if we happen to run into where I need a couple extra. But the DTF full color prints for me have really moved my retail business up a notch. We can design for them. We can add all the colors and not be worried about we can only spend like one. We should only have one because it's not cost effective or that part. That's what's really has helped me. The pro of this has really moved my business forward. So
I really like the fact that you really share the journey, right? Because they always say when people are successful in life or successful in business, they don't see the heartache and tears all along the way. They say, hey, look, Becky has this $40,000, $50,000 printer. Either she's been in business for years or she's super wealthy, right? They don't realize the nights you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you're near to tears. I said that when I got in DTF, I became more religious because I was praying so much, like, God, please, and I felt a lot of times it humbled me to my knees, like literally, because you just don't always have the answer. And it's definitely nice to have a community that can support you and help you. And that journey is something that people have to realize that are they willing or committed to make, because that every step along that way is a financial decision, and even if you have the means to jump, to a $40,000 or $50,000 machine, is that necessarily the right decision to make? My biggest thing, and I'm not discouraging anyone to buy a DTF printer, is that what type of background do you have that would relate to DTF? So like the heartaches, the maintenance, the daily maintenance, the weekly maintenance, the monthly maintenance, not being able to not use your machine, not being able to go on vacation, those type of things that if you were into DTG, you may have somewhat of an experience of that. Like, I already know, but I definitely think that DTF is more finicky than DTG, but at least you kind of have an understanding of your heartache that's coming, right? The roadblocks that are coming, and you'll deal with them when they come, right? But if you come from a sublimation, I'm not saying sublimation you can't get a head clog or something like that, from sitting. But it's just they're two worlds apart. The maintenance on DTF is
and the maintenance is getting better with the better machines. Your more commercial machines have made it easier. The white ink circulation, that was the one thing I got when I went to the commercial machine. They're starting to add some of the white circulation stuff onto some of the smaller printers, or you can try to add one on yourself. Right. It is key because that white has the binders in it a little bit, and that's what clogs and that's what gets stuck. So if you're not cleaning the ink around everything, it's going to start building up. It's going to start doing whatever. And there's not a lot of room between that print head and the paper that you're printing on, or the film that you're printing on, because it's right there to print. And if that gets clogged or that gets anything, it's going to show, and it's going to start, you're going to have, your ink is going to smear, and you're going to have bad prints. So again, I didn't have much. I didn't screen print. I did not do DTG. I was a sublimation girl, but I absolutely did not like doing sublimation on apparel. My customers didn't like it. They did not like a polyester shirt. They didn't even really like the cotton feel polyester shirts. There's nothing wrong with them. I have a colleague that's close to me. She sells a ton of sublimation shirts. I love the fact that there was no feel and it never washed away. That was awesome. But to try to convince your people, your customers, that really like that 60-40 blend or a black shirt, that can't do that, and they don't understand why you're printing it. You could print it on there. Right. Well, you can't. I mean, there's processes there to, and they don't, not everybody understands that, but I'm pretty much apparel now. The sublimation side for me, I still have everything. I am looking to probably kind of push that away into the local gal that already does sublimation and have her start doing some of that for me, because the focus for me is the apparel. The focus for me is the DTF transfers. I love to be able to get DTF transfers to people that have never tried them, because once they try them, they're hooked.
It's like crack your first hits free.
It just opens up a world. What's that?
I said it's like crack your first hits free.
A little bit.
Here you go. No, I 100% agree that it's hard to I think sometimes I get like blinders, right? And I'm so laser focused on something that it's hard for me to give up, right? And that's a good and bad, right? Sometimes you gotta cut your losses and move on. But to
Yeah.
me, you said you ran an L1800 for a couple months. I ran it for 19 months, and people were like, "You ran an L1800 for 19 months? Like that's insane." And the beginning stages as well too is I've known you a long time now, and I think inks, powders, films have all come a long way, and and that's a huge thing too that people aren't talking about. Like, and the problem too with purchasing inks, when everyone's rebranding the ink, it's like it's hard to tell unless you start paying attention to the bottle and you start recognizing the bottle. Like, okay, I know I can order from 3 or 4 different companies. It's actually the same ink, but we went through that heartache together as as a group. Yeah, as a group, us buying ink directly from manufacturers and buying in bulk, getting good and bad ink, negotiating those prices to get our prices down to make us more profitable. That's something too. And something I really want to mention is that so many people would rather see someone do bad than do good, right? That it almost to the point that hurts them, right? If you make more of an effort to make someone else look bad to make yourself look good, that's never good, right? So Becky and I, we do the same exact thing, right? And here we are in the same exact video, and I'm plugging her business, saying if you need DTF prints, give her a call. And there's so much business to go around. There's no reason to be cutthroat, and there's too many people selling prints that have no business selling prints.
And I've been through that. I mean, I probably started out selling a little bit faster. But I started with my key people, my friends that are in the sublimation business, and I'm like, you guys need to try this. We need to try this, And I'd send them. They're like, yeah, it worked this time. And then we'd send some more, oh, that one didn't work, So we, before I put it out to the masses, we really, I have a whole tote full of shirts that are done or have nothing but covered in DTF transfers and then I've got marker next to it. Like this was 65% white and this was at 325 for 10 seconds, or we tried all the different times, temps, pressures. We worked through that and we finally found some good stuff. And the gentleman that I'm working with that's working with the Simply Works, that's starting the Simply Works, is very knowledgeable and he loves the science behind it. So he wants to know, he's been trying the inks, he's been trying the powders, we're still working through that part of it, trying to get the best for our customers that we can. And I'm the same as you, Rick. I'd rather collaborate on anything, because the more people that I know that can print the same stuff I can print, that just means I have people to reach out to if something happens to my printer. I have one printer. If something goes down, I'm dead in the water.
Right.
That's not how I want to run my business, because I don't want my customers waiting for stuff.
Yeah.
So if I know somebody, and you have to watch too, because everybody, even if they have the same printer, if they're not using the same inks, they're not using the same film, they're not using the same powder, they're not even using the same RIP software, we're going to have different colors.
Absolutely.
And that's the Simply Works system that we're working with, is also looking to try to set up a network of people that are running the same machines, that are going to produce the same quality prints, so that if I go down, I have a network of people to call and say, help, I got orders that need to go out, and we're willing to work together. If you don't have the collaboration and you don't have that helping heart, that's not where you're going to want to be. But if you're going to be part of that, like you said, there's so much room for people to be in this business if you want to be in the business.
And
there's more than enough.
And I also say, as far as pricing, like, it's there's an oldie song, "Smile on My Face the whole time you want to take my place," and I've never heard that song. But there's too much of that too. Like, people are fake and friendly on Facebook, and at the same time they're seeing your name and then trying to market to your customers. That's crazy. So or underbid, because on Facebook.
And I'm definitely not the cheapest out there. I know there are other ones that are running cheaper, but I'll stand behind my product. If something happens and you can show me it happened, we've lost stuff, I replace it. We've had bad prints. What do we need to do?
Right.
We'll replace it and fix it to make it right. Now, I hope that doesn't mean somebody takes advantage of that to the point of whatever. I've not had that happen. I guess those that I work with, I've been pretty lucky, I guess, and I just know I'm here to help.
Right.
So I want everybody else to have a good product that they're putting out. So.
Right. So I think ultimately you have to make the decision that are you getting the DTF because you are trying to make your own garments, right? And you
Right.
have your own urban apparel, or are you getting in the DTF because you're trying to sell print transfers? Because starting in a desktop environment, if you're trying to sell prints, I think you're starting off on the wrong foot. Is that a kind of agree? Would you agree with that
What's
statement?
That?
If it's starting off, if you're trying to sell prints and you have a desktop printer, you're starting in the wrong foot. Like that's the wrong direction.
It is. If you're going to start off with DTF, you really need to start off with DTF for yourself. You need to learn it and experience it and test and trial and all of that, because there's a lot of factors that go into it that I don't think people realize.
Yeah.
Temp and humidity. I ran into some issues because we went from 60, 70 degrees to 20. And the humidity level in my office went from sitting at a really good 45 to 20. And I'm running a humidifier. I shut it off today so you don't have to listen to it.
Right.
But I'm running a humidifier 24/7 right now because I'm trying to get that level back up. And it's a struggle with the winter weather. Now, somebody down in Texas, they're dry all year round. There again, you still have to have your humidity in the temp in your office or your shop or wherever you're working with it needs to be, there's some leeway with it. I think we say 40 to 60. You have to find that sweet spot of humidity level in your shop. Mine is that 40 to 45 range. I can run there. I can run a little bit lower than that, and it's okay. Somebody else probably needs to be sitting closer to 60 in their shop to make it work. Those are all things you have to trial and error to find your good spot to make it work.
So I actually purchased a Ecobee thermostat. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's like a smart thermostat, and it's able to monitor the humidity. And then I have dampers on my vents. So when that room reaches, and I have a sensor just in that room, when that room reaches 67 degrees, it turns off. And then that damper can close so that if the rest of my house is, or another room is still cold, it can turn on. And then dehumidifiers or humidifiers in that room to do it. But there's dangers in being at certain levels. If you're in a room and you're over 50% humidity, you do risk the fact of creating mold or black mold.
Right.
So it's a scary fine line. Like, where do you want to be? And exactly what you said, finding that fine. And just be consistent, so that you can reproduce the same exact thing, right? Because you said you have a perfect print, and you don't want to run 50 prints and then all of a sudden have a problem. So if you do things consistently, and you realize that sweet spot, and able to continue to have consistent prints, and I think that's also some of the things that people don't talk about. The seasonal changes, the temperatures in the room, and this buying expired ink, and just the whole real the problem of buying bad supplies, and that's another thing, the reason why I think that you should buy prints at first, because can you afford to take some of these hits? Like Becky, some of these hits you took were, you're saying it very humbly, but you took some really hard hits. They could bankrupt other people.
Well, and honestly, if I hadn't gotten to the point where I was, and I was patient with a lot of things, and I've realized that it doesn't help to go off your rocker for it, I guess would be the way to say it. You need to be patient because the world is the way it is, and I had patience, but there was a time I was looking at like, well, this is either gonna have to work, or I'm gonna be looking at trying to do something else, because if I did not have the cash flow, because I wasn't making the prints, I could order, and I did order. I ordered from other people for months because my printer wasn't working and didn't work and all that stuff. But my bottom line at that point didn't allow for that, because I'm making payments on a printer that's not working. I'm making, you've got supplies sitting here that you've you put thousands of dollars out for it to have the quantity on hand to be ready for being able to print. You didn't have the extra couple $1,000s in there to make that happen. You know, it's not like going out and buying a ream of paper for a couple bucks. I mean, you know, your roll of paper at this point is, you know, a couple $100 to make sure you have the good stuff, you have the good ink. You know, those things all factor in. And yes, if you can buy quantity, you can get your dollar amount down. But I can't afford to buy quantity in the quantity that some of these guys are buying. It's, you know, we're getting there. We're ready for it. You know, we're ready to start doing the mass quantity stuff. We've done our legwork and we're ready for it. But those are things that you don't realize how much you waste getting to this point. I mean, I know I've had well over 2 rolls of film just in the last couple months that have pretty much gone in the garbage because, 1, it wasn't working, 2, things weren't curing right, you know, colors weren't right, whatever it is, and you print until you can get that because you need it to.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, I spent $1,700 from a supply company that comes me up and down, and I won't say the person's name, but there's certain people on Facebook, these DTF groups that are really well known, and they will promote a company. And that's scary to recommend a company unless you've done long-term business with them, because a lot of these companies, they actually don't manufacture anything. They're rebranding, relabeling, right? So they buy a bulk of ink that's good for a year, and they're selling that. And when that ink runs out, now they're price shopping to get the best ink again. So the second or third time around, it's not the same ink. And that's why when you're buying ink, it's important to buy it either from a manufacturer, so you know that's legitimately their ink, or supplies in general, whatever it may be, or from a distributor that's honest. If they're going to say it's STS ink, and I'm not plugging them in any sort of ways, I'm just throwing a name out there because that's a manufacturer. And if they're going to put their own name on it, at least they're going to say, like, hey, this is this type of ink, so you know, like, this is my go-to ink, right? And I also think it's when someone who's selling supplies doesn't rebrand it, it's kind of like they're taking the liability away from themselves. Because if for some reason they're bad batch, they could say, sorry, we'll give you your money back, no problems. And it doesn't necessarily make them look bad. It's like, you know, you go to Walmart, you're not mad at them because they sold you bad ketchup. They didn't make it. They just gave you a new ketchup. And you're like, all right, thanks. So that's taking that away. And you know, just a lot of factors and just a lot of money, you know, that's going into all this. So I think that jumping into this, you have to think a couple things. What realistically is your budget, right? Because it's like, I see people on Facebook, they say, what's the best DTF printer? I'm scratching my head, like, it's like saying, what's the best car? You know what I mean? Like, so you have to purchase within your budget. Okay, so if you can't jump into a commercial level and go to a $35,000 or $45,000 printer, and you're going to start in a desktop because you just want to get your feet wet, I don't think that's a bad thing. But don't make the assumptions because you bought a $3,500 desktop converted printer that all of a sudden you can compete with you. You can't. You know, is it okay to learn how to do them yourselves? If that's where you want to start, that's fine. You know, but I think that a desktop printer, really has no. You're in the wrong lane if you think that you're going to sell prints. Period. It can.
Well, and it's not that you can't.
Right.
But your turnaround time and the amount of time that you're going to spend standing over that printer watching it to make sure that it's printing, and then, okay, if you have this desktop printer, how are you powdering and curing these prints?
Right.
Are you hand powdering it? Okay. You have to have a time frame to know when those prints are just dry enough to put the powder on them. Because if they're too dry, the powder won't stick. If they're too wet, they're going to be too thick.
Yeah.
There's a happy medium. You know, you have to know when to do that. You have to powder them. And then how are you curing them? Are you hovering a heat press over it? I did that for quite a while. You can get it to work, and it does work. I had a conveyor dryer. Honestly, the conveyor dryer was awesome. I took the prints off. I hand powdered them. I did not like that because it's hard to run. People want to send you a gang sheet.
Right.
On my website, I have options for gang sheets. People love it. They can fit as much as if they want a jigsaw puzzle, all them designs in there and cut them apart. It's wonderful because for that same price, you can fit 60 images on there depending on your size, or if you need it to be, laid out just so, you're only maybe getting 20 on there. Whatever it is that you can do. But if I'm printing them and I'm having to hand cut them apart, I'm placing them so I have room to cut apart and I have room to hold that transfer without sticking my finger in the ink. And I'll tell you, I've wasted a lot of prints sticking my finger in the ink. But you have to do that, and then into the conveyor dryer it went, and that was nice because then you didn't have to set a timer because I had the conveyor dryer. It took a long time to get that figured out. Like, how fast does that conveyor need to go? What temperature needs to be in there? All that kind of stuff. But you spend that doing that. Those are things that okay, you got the printer. How are you drying them? How are you curing them? How are you, what setup are you going to do? I don't want to deter anybody from buying one if that's what they want to do too, because again, it has definitely taken my retail business up because I can do things that you can't if you don't have them. But I also suggest that you look at finding 5 or 6 different companies that sell transfers. What do you like about them? Is their customer service good? Is their turnaround time good? And I take the feedback of mine. What is it that you like about mine? What don't you like about mine? I'm looking at trying to change some things too, and what can I make things better? Right. But find the transfers you like, and then I'm willing to talk to anybody that wants to know how I do things. Right. I mean, if you want to get into DTF, obviously here you've heard my experience, but if you want a little bit more, I'll tell you exactly what stuff we're doing here. The Simply Works system, again, is going to come back around. I have them looking for more of a, for lack of a better term, a desktop one for some of those that don't want to hit into a big commercial, because when you're talking $20,000-$30,000, that's a true investment. Absolutely. That means you're in it for the long haul, and not that if you spend $8,000 to $10,000, you're not in it for the long haul, but it would be a smaller footprint. It would be, a little less that way. But we want the same quality coming out of our smaller printer as we get out of our commercial printers. That's the biggest thing we're trying to find, is something to go into that middle ground of, somewhere between a desktop and a full commercial printer. I want something that we find that would kind of fill that next void in between there.
They do have those mid-sized desktops with dual print heads. Those seem to be making a trend, replacing these smaller converted. But the only thing I would say with that is that the print heads are more expensive because they'd be the same print heads used in a larger format printer.
And that's what we're trying to find, is yes, in order to make them be the same quality, we want those good print heads in there. Right. And print heads are the main component that bring that price up.
And no point intended, but bigger is not always better.
Right.
And I see some of these wide format printers, and you ask, well, what's the resolution you can print? And they can't print small. They can't print small font at all. Fine lines like at all, and you're like, well, you have a desktop printer. Well, it's like, well, I can print at 2880 by 2880. What can you print at? And they're some of these printers, they look phenomenal. They have the circulation systems. They have a heated plant, where the sheet comes off. Just every bell and whistle you can see. And you're like, well, what printer does have this? Has a 600. You're like, huh? Or the resolution's so low, you're like, what? Oh, yeah, of course it can print fast. If I took an L1800 and I lowered my resolution down to 400 by, something like no, so that's just a big thing too. There's a lot of questions to ask because people don't realize what resolution you should be printing at.
Well, and your graphics, come into it. If you're gonna right-click off Google's image thing and send me a PNG file to print, that quality compared to a true vector file is, going to make a big difference too. And honestly, that is one thing I learned when I started my business. I started with a Cricut. I bought myself for Christmas, and I started in Cricut Design Space. I was able to do a lot of things out of there, but then I graduated out to Inkscape, which is a free one, which if you're working in Cricut design space, there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely not. But if you're looking to actually design, you need to get into design programs. You need to get into Inkscape, which is free. Start there. Affinity is a wonderful program that's fairly inexpensive that does rival against Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. Right now, and I moved into CorelDRAW was where I first went. Now I'm getting into, I have CorelDRAW. On any given day, I have CorelDRAW open, I have Adobe Illustrator open, and I have Photoshop open. Yeah. And everybody's like, well, what's the best? You know, and that was my question too. Well, which one's the best? Which one's the best? And the answer is, they all are. Right. Because I have different things that I can do in Corel. I have things I need to do in Adobe Illustrator, and then I have Photoshop that still has its place for things. Yeah. You need all of them, you know, and Procreate is coming through off the iPads for drawing. Those are wonderful too. But again, if you don't have a high quality file, design, it doesn't matter which printer you're on, right, the desktop or the most expensive, you're not going to get a good print. And that's where I've been trying to work with my customers. I mean, if I see not a bad design, a low quality design come through, I want to work with them. I want them to understand what they sent me and what we can get it to and how to get it to that point and work from there, because the better quality design you send me, the better your print is going to be. And I don't want to send you a bad quality print because you're going to blame me, right, for that bad quality. Well, it's not always that, but if you don't understand the difference in that part, it's hard to get that way. So,
and what you have in the printer that you have, you know, it's funny that people when they get to that level and then they duplicate that to 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and 7 printers, you become less involved, right? At that point, you need multiple employees, and it's hard to take all that knowledge that you've gained throughout this whole journey and pass that down. And even in some sakes, the owners, the operator, they're scared to share that knowledge because you are literally or have the capability of creating your own worst enemy, competition. Yep. You know, you having a pissed off employee to say, you know what, I can do this. I don't need you. Thank you for teaching me everything. You know, so these larger printers. I'm sorry, not larger printers, but these larger wholesale printers, people who are printing, they're not as paying as attention to detail, you know, as you may. You know, I put in a large order. I think it was over 100 feet, put it that way, and I received it and it was backwards. And I was like, I mean, it looked phenomenal. There was not, and I'm like, you didn't notice it was backwards?
Well, you know, and I have done the same thing when I design and set up my game sheet. I always put edges around it so I know where I'm at, and I've learned to just set my artboard to to the correct size. But I also put a background behind it, so if I've got white anywhere, I can see it. So I don't make sure I don't overlap one design to another if it's got white. And I had sent off stuff one time, and either the background was still there or the border was still there. It's going to print one solid design, and there's no saving that. And I have had that happen to me too, you know, because they're there to print fast, fast turnaround, which is great, because we need it. But if the quality that I send you isn't caught, which, yes, that's back on me, it wasn't his fault, that was all on my design and on my file that I sent. But if I have one come through like that, the first thing I do is I go back to my customer and say, this isn't going to work. This is how, and I put a background behind it. I show them exactly what's going to print. You know, you've got a white square around this design. You're going to get a white square. You're not going to want that. Yeah. You know, so yes, as we grow, you know, and I guess that's the one thing. Yeah, I want my business to grow, but I also don't want it to grow to the point where my customers end up with not a good customer service. To getting, you know. It might be my customer's fault, but I want to make sure that they're still getting the best quality product from me that they can get.
And see, and that's really the difference. If people are not losing sight of their business, you know, and still staying involved, versus get to the level when I can kick back on the beach and I've made it to that point. And I think ultimately that's what a business owner wants to be, right? at some point you want
Right.
to hand the reins over to somebody else. But when you
Right.
lose sight of your company and you're not directly involved in your company, things can kind of slip through the rings, so to speak. So I think
Right.
that's definitely good to keep your eyes, on your assets, which is your company, your name, your reputation, because
Yep.
you can fire that employee all you want. It doesn't matter. That reputation still stays with you. You're not saying, well,
Right.
Joe did it. It doesn't matter who Joe is. It's your name who's on the prints that's being sent out. So yeah. So there's been a lot of different information sent out. A lot of different opinions and facts and heartaches, and maybe playing down some of these things, but not to discourage people anyway. Just really, ultimately, make your purchase within your means, and whatever level that means that is, then you're not in competition with me. I'm not in competition with you. You're not in competition with Becky. The only person you should be worried about is your household, right? Because if you put yourself in a financial situation that's going to not better your financial situation, it's going to hurt because you made the assumptions, I could afford this, and now you can't make the payments, you can lose your house or your car. That's not good. So just start in a position that you know you can afford. Don't put yourself in a position you can't dig your way out of it. And don't let your pride get in the way to ask for help. Because the DTF community has been phenomenal. We live across the country from each other. I talk to you almost daily, right? So I mean, if you are if you're the type of person willing to reach out, and listen to constructive criticism, because there's also people who ask questions, and then when someone tells them try this or try that, they become offensive. But all of a sudden they're an expert. Look, if you're an expert, you wouldn't ask for help. So sometimes you just shut up and listen. And some things sound so stupid, like take an alcohol wipe and spray it, wipe your head. Oh, I run clearing head cleans. Just wipe it. You know what I mean? And they wipe it. Oh, okay. So the community can definitely be a big support. Everyone on Facebook, everyone on Facebook or everyone on YouTube is not always the greatest resource. But when you go to the masses, and the same thing with these collaborators, when you're getting a different opinion from more than one person, or when you're getting an opinion from someone who's had the same exact machine or has the same exact machine, that's great, because a lot of these companies that you're buying these printers from, they're overseas, right? And there are a few companies, far few in between, that are importing these and selling these and supporting these. Now, but the difference is that some people, by buying them overseas and buying them stateside, it's obviously a drastic difference in price, right? I mean, you're saving a ton of money going direct, but there's pros and cons to that, right? Because now they may not support you, or there's a huge language barrier, or your 13-hour difference. So if you're in your prime, right in the middle of your day, and your printer goes down, and you have to wait till 2 o'clock in the morning to get a hold of someone, right? So
and honestly, there are some really good manufacturers over there that are willing to help you, but 9 times out of 10, if you buy direct from the manufacturer, there is no support. There's no the warranty only lasts for a short amount of time, and that's, again, sorry to plug this again, but the Simply Work system that we're working on will have a 6-month warranty. We're working on customer service. You'll have the option to go back to the YouTube videos that, of all the things that we've done. When we have to change a print head, we're going to video it so that you can see it. If you have to change, different things, whatever it is that happens, we're going to try to video it so that when it happens to you, you have a resource to come back to, and you can see exactly how we do it. And we're going to be there. Obviously, we all have family and lives too, so sometimes it may not be that at 6 o'clock when I'm cooking supper for my family that I'm going to answer you within 10 seconds of the ding on my phone. But we will be there for the customer service. We will be there for helping along the way with whatever our customers need.
So I think this video is kind of as clear as mud, as they say, right? You may have come to this video with questions, and ultimately at the end you may have more questions than answers, and it's because that there's all different spin-offs, and we can make this video probably 3 hours long. The more and more, the deeper and deeper we go into this. And I would say anyone watching this video, if there's any content we didn't cover, any questions that you have, leave comments in the description below. Becky or I can obviously reply. or we can do a follow video and maybe go into more details on anything that you have. But what I hope that you take away from this video is that stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. That's all I can say. Don't look at your neighbor and say what you need to do. You need to do what's best for your business. You need to do what's best for your family, and jump in at a comfortable level. Don't be stubborn-headed and not willing to, or be prideful, not willing to ask for help. Ask and you shall receive. That's what they say, right? You have not because you ask not, right? That's what they say. So ask for help, whether it be from the community, if the manufacturer's not supporting you, or whatever. Just go to these resources you have online, which is phenomenal because they're becoming more and more people. The more people who do this is better, because supplies are going to get better, because they're going to feedback is going to go to the manufacturers. Everything's going to continue to get better. The early stages of DTF were just so like the wild west, right? And it's becoming
you're buying a printer and you're hoping you can convert it.
Right.
You're hoping somebody, like I said, when I was running my P800, I reached out in a dozen groups. Who would answer the question? You get somebody to answer, and then you're at their mercy of whether or not they're available to help you. And I have met a lot of people along the way that have been very helpful. Some that'll just give you a one-word answer, and then there's no help. And you could talk to 4 other people and do the same video, and you're going to get 4 other complete different answers on how and what you should do. Everybody has this. This is just my personal experience of what I've gone through. I mean, again, like I said, it's not for the faint heart. You need to know what you're getting into, and or not, I guess, because I didn't know, and here I am. But
I think that
it's just, you just have to really decide: are you willing to put forth the effort that goes with the business? The business is time-consuming at times, and there was a lot of nights that I spent up till 2-3 o'clock in the morning printing, because I had an order that it needed to go out. And because of how long it took the printer to print, you had to allow that time. And so that's where you need to start. Is your business capable of handling that? Are you able to have that time to do it? Are you a weekend? Is your apparel business a weekend one where you're only going to be printing on the weekend? If that printer sits for that many days, it's not going to be as kind to you the next weekend when you're trying to use it. Those are things to understand. So
I've printed 17 hours straight on the LAT. 17 hours straight. I didn't even sleep. It was the next day. I remember my wife waking up in the morning. She says, "Oh, you're up early?" Yes. "No, I haven't gone to bed." And she was like, "What?" So have I made my money back on that little desktop? 100%. Could I've made probably 4 times the amount that I. So what is your time worth, right? So
right.
If I was to have something, I could have, probably printed that in 2 hours, 3 hours tops,
right.
And it took me that long. But you have to start somewhere. Humble beginnings.
You do. Yes.
Yep. So,
and if that's somewhere you start is by ordering transfers, that's a great place to start also.
Right. And it's also establishing and networking yourself, because like you said, that when you are ready to get to that level, and you do make that purchase, in the event you do have a problem with your print head, you're already familiar with that person to be your plan B. Not because what happens is, I would never tell my customer, "Hey, my printer's down, Becky's going to do all my prints." I'm not going to. I don't want my customers to know Becky's doing it. I'm just being honest, right? That's my business, so that you don't want to experiment all of a sudden when that happens.
Right.
So, and it's not like you're planning to fail, but just ultimately these machines, they have wearable parts. At some point in time, something's going to go down, right? And unless you're at the point that you have print heads in stock and then just, which you probably don't, but you could have it in a couple of days. But when a big order comes in, you don't want to wait 3 to 5 days for the part to come in. Plus you have to fix it, and then for something else. So you always want to have that plan B. So by ordering from a couple of different people, they may not tell you, "Oh, I use this brand film, I use this brand powder." There's going to be some trade secrets they're going to hold near and dear because they've invested thousands of dollars to try different supplies, and they're not just going to hand out a list and say, here you go,
Right.
but at least hey, Becky's my go-to girl. If I have an issue with my printer, I trust her. That's who I'm gonna get my prints from. Otherwise, I'm gonna run my own prints. And that's a good ally to have.
Right.
And then same token that if you have problems with your printers, just to bounce somebody's off. And say, hey, what do you think of this, or what do you think's wrong? And it's funny, and
Right.
it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm on Facebook, and the little light's green. So what do I get? Bing! I get a message from somebody. Hey, Rick, are you awake? Yeah, I'm awake. What's going on? But I've done the same to somebody else.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And sometimes it's not even for help; it's just sanity, because you can't talk with somebody else. I mean, I go talk to my wife. I'm sure you talk to your husband times, and they're like, "All right, shut up about the printer already," and they don't want to hear it, or they don't understand it, or just
Right.
that's all you want to talk about for the longest time, because that's all your mind's clouded with thoughts on.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. And bless my husband, he has done a wonderful job. He knows. I mean, sometimes that's like, oh, I was talking to so and so, and later, and then 2 days later, are we talking? He goes, well, was that Rick you were talking to? I mean, he knows, because he's listened to me long enough. He knows who I'm talking to, and
right.
he knows what we're doing. So I'm extremely thankful for him, for the support that he's given me through this process of allowing me to learn and grow, and is just right there behind me when we need to do it. So
early on, when I first started, my wife, to be honest, she said she wanted nothing to do with this. She, when I first started, I bought a 54-inch vinyl plotter, and she was like, why don't you buy a small one like you're seeing a Cricut? And I was like, no, and I want big. When I first started, I was doing storefronts, and I started doing barbershops, and I got so good at it, people were actually flying me. I went to New Jersey just to do a barbershop, and they flew me out there. So that's how I started, and then doing silk screen, and then doing, the DTG, then doing the DTF, and my wife was like, I've supported you all along this way. To me, DTF is too DIY. I think you're wasting money, and she completely didn't support the cause at all. She was really upset with me that I spent the money that I did, and especially when I would order $800 in ink, and I said, why? I threw it away. Then I bought 5 kilos of powder, and it was horrible. And just I bought film, and it was bad. And you're going to say, well, Rick, why would you spend that much money? Well, because I get a sample, and it was good, and they did the bait and switch. I got robbed 3 times from different printers.
Right.
I ordered 2 printers, never showed up. I ordered 1 printer, and it showed up, and it works, but it wasn't the printer I bought. You know what I mean? So,
right. Yep.
That was my heartache that I went through. And just the same as you had your growing pains, I had mine, and but those are financial hurdles that some people may not think over. That may be your dead duck in the water now. Like, hey, that was all the savings you had. So that's another thing, is just that be cautious in the direction you're going, and be prepared, to dig in your pocket. And if that means that you have to sell prints for a while, that you purchased, to build to that level, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with establishing, growing your business, and then getting to the point that you could afford the payment, because ultimately, either you have the cash, which would be great, but that's not always possible, depending on the price, right? Or you're at the point that, hey, I can afford a $350 payment. I'm doing $1,700 a month, no big deal, and then that $1,700 a month to the point that, now, hey, I don't need my job. This becomes a full-time gig, because to me, this has always been a side gig. I've been doing shirts, t-shirt hustles, since the 90s. I'm a lineman, that's my full-time gig, but it's to the point hey, if I get a printer like Becky, that could compete with me. It's hard to say, hey, I made $181,000 this year. How can I quit my job to go make T-shirts? But the more money you make, the more money you spend, right? So I have people come to my house, and they're like, oh man, this is so nice. I say, yeah, the bank owns it, because people may have more money than me, because I spend it sometimes recklessly, unfortunately. But so the point also, whenever you create a side hustle, I think everyone inside in mind is that at some point your passion can become your full-time gig, and I think that would be phenomenal that I could get to that level. I think it's great that you are able to achieve that. And I'm not trying to be like male chauvinist, but it's a great example for a woman to say that as a business owner, as an operator, that you can do this, right? Because sometimes it's like you're in a man's world, right? And nobody wants to help you, or you can't be in corporate America because you're a woman, and that's not true at all. Or or that because you're a woman you have to be crafty and you can't be professional, and maybe started off that way, with a Cricut, but look where you're at now. And I don't know very many men in my inner circle in this industry that have achieved what you've achieved. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
And I think you've gone a great journey, and I see a bright future in your path, and I think that the Lord's blessed you definitely, and you're on the right direction. So, yeah.
I am thankful for the journey. I'm excited about where it's going to go. I see good things. I look at my inner circle of network, and it is all positive. And you look at the heartaches that you got, just talking, with the Simple Works group. It's like, okay, we had to go through this hardship and this frustration and this, but here's where we're at.
Right.
If I hadn't done what I did, I wouldn't have met the people I've met.
Right.
To get to the level that I'm at. And so even though there's times when my patience is 0 and whatever, I have to stop and remember that there's a plan, and I'm trusting that plan. I'm trusting who the Lord put in front of me and who's put on my path, and maybe whose path I'm being put on. I mean, I don't know that. I guess I always look at it as who's coming across my path, and not the other way around about whose path I'm going to be in.
Right.
So I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for the support that I've gotten through the network that I've made, and I'm excited to see where we can take it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty much all I had to say, unless I'm going to start babbling, but I think we've covered it great. Is there anything that you wanted to speak on, or anything you wanted to kind of put out there before we go?
I would just say ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. Reach out to us. Like Rick said earlier, we're here to answer the questions. We're willing to talk. We're willing to help. So
below each of us in these videos on hers, and we kind of, what was that show with the kids where they had the Brady Bunch?
Yep.
So we kind of look like the Brady Bunch right now with our 2 squares, but below our 2 squares will be all the contact information to reach either one of us. I'll put in a plug in her website for her company and some point of contact if you would like to order prints from her. I personally have put in my name on saying that she's trustworthy.
Thank you.
So I'm not at the point that I'm selling prints. Have I sold prints to my inner circle when we've had problems? Yes. Will I be at that level? I hope so, but I'm not there yet. And everyone's at a different pace. And like I said, there's no competition. It's you're at the pace where you think that you're ready for it. Because the other thing is, like you're saying, is that when you make that step up to the next upgrade, you have to use that printer to its potential, right? You don't buy a $45,000 printer, use it on the weekends, And
right.
So I run my printer probably at least 3 to 4 days a week, If I had a printer like that, I might only have to do it 2 days a week, because then you don't have to do it. But then also too is that I may limit the amount of intake that I take, because I know what I'm capable of doing. So then it could allow me to be at the next level. So just be within your means. I thank everyone for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Becky, do you have a YouTube channel yet?
I don't. You're lucky you got me on here. I'm kind of camera shy.
Okay. So
we're getting there, though.
So if and when she does get a YouTube channel, I'll definitely plug it. On my channel, there's an option that you can actually share the channels. In my little inner circle, I will start sharing those channels, which you cannot pay to be on. You actually have to be a genuine friend of mine, because I'm not putting my reputation on the line as well.
Right.
But yeah. So that's all I really had to say. If anyone has any questions, either send us an email, write in the comments. We'll reply right away. And if you're ready to jump in, just be prepared. All right? Be prepared. So God bless. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.